May 28, 1940, Reich Air Ministry, Berlin. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring set down the intelligence report with undisguised contempt. The document detailed President Roosevelt's request to Congress for an unprecedented expansion of American aircraft production, a capacity to manufacture 50,000 planes annually. "The Americans are desperate if they believe such propaganda will frighten us," Göring told his staff. "They know nothing of war production. Let them try to convert their automobile factories. They will learn that building warplanes requires more than assembly lines." What Göring failed to grasp was that in Detroit, a Danish immigrant named William Knudsen was already proving him wrong. The former General Motors president, now working for $1 per year as Roosevelt's production chief, was orchestrating the most ambitious industrial transformation in human history. Within 4 years, American factories would produce not the impossible 50,000 aircraft Göring dismissed, but nearly 100,000 planes annually, while simultaneously supplying 2 theatres of war across opposite oceans. The proclamation that triggered German contempt came on May 16, 1940, as German panzers raced through France. Standing before Congress, Franklin Roosevelt declared, "I should like to see this nation geared up to the ability to turn out at least 50,000 planes a year." The reaction was skepticism even among allies. In 1939, America had produced just 3,611 military aircraft. The Army Air Corps possessed 1,700 combat planes, many obsolete. Yet Roosevelt demanded a 14-fold increase in production. William Knudsen became the architect of this miracle. When asked who could achieve such impossible production, presidential advisor Bernard Baruch responded, "First, Bill Knudsen. Second, Bill Knudsen. Third, Bill Knudsen." Knudsen had abandoned his $300,000 salary to serve his adopted nation, bringing automotive mass production principles to aircraft manufacturing. The transformation began immediately. By December 1941, American factories were producing 2,000 military aircraft monthly, a 20-fold increase from 2 years earlier. The Ford Motor Company announced plans for a massive bomber plant at Willow Run, Michigan. Boeing expanded its Seattle facilities. Douglas Aircraft hired thousands of workers. The arsenal of democracy was awakening. The Nazi leadership's dismissal of American capabilities stemmed from both racial prejudice and willful blindness. General Friedrich von Boeticher, Wehrmacht military attaché in Washington from 1933 to 1941, sent accurate reports describing American industrial mobilization. His December 1940 cable warned, "American war production will reach unimaginable heights." Berlin dismissed these warnings as defeatist exaggeration. When Boeticher met Hitler in February 1939 to discuss American potential, the Führer ranted about American racial degeneracy rather than listening to intelligence assessments. Hitler proclaimed Americans half Judaized, half negrified, and incapable of sustained warfare. This ideological blindness would prove fatal. The prejudice permeated all levels. Luftwaffe intelligence dismissed reports of women entering aircraft factories as signs of American desperation. They couldn't conceive that democratic mobilization might exceed totalitarian command. When reports arrived of factories running 3 shifts, German analysts assumed exaggeration. The Nazi worldview simply couldn't accommodate American reality. Ford's Willow Run plant embodied American ambition. Constructed on farmland beginning April 18, 1941, it became the world's largest factory under one roof, 3.5 million square feet with an assembly line stretching 1 mile. Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief, promised to build 1 B-24 Liberator bomber per hour, when other factories managed 1 per day. Initial results were catastrophic. The first bomber, completed September 1942, required complete rebuilding. Quality control failures reached 50%. By February 1943, Willow Run produced just 56 bombers monthly against promises of hundreds. Critics dubbed it "Will It Run?" But Ford engineers persevered, breaking the B-24's 488,193 parts into manageable sub-assemblies. They developed hydraulic riveting tools, prefabricated wiring harnesses, and moving assembly lines. They accommodated 578 design changes in 1943 alone, while maintaining production. By September 1943, monthly production reached 148 bombers. By December, 365. The breakthrough came in April 1944, when Willow Run produced 428 B-24s, one every 63 minutes, 24 hours daily. This single factory was outproducing the entire German aviation industry. German pilots first recognized American production superiority during the Tunisia campaign. Major Johannes Steinhoff, commanding JG-77, noted in December 1942, "The American pilots are no longer amateurs. Most disturbing, there are more of them every day." The revelation accelerated through 1943. January 27th marked the first American raid on Germany itself, 64 bombers attacking Wilhelmshaven. By October, during Black Thursday at Schweinfurt, the Americans could lose 60 B-17s and replace them within 2 weeks. The mathematics had become inescapable. During Big Week, February 20th to 25th, 1944, the 8th and 15th Air Forces mounted 3,500 bomber sorties against German aircraft production. The Luftwaffe lost between 262 and 355 fighters, but more critically, approximately 100 irreplaceable veteran pilots. General Adolf Galland reported to Göring that Germany was losing 1,200 fighters monthly while producing 1,000. America was producing 2,500 fighters monthly while losing 400. Major Heinz Baer, one of Germany's top aces with 220 victories, described a January 1944 mission over Brunswick. The bomber stream stretched from horizon to horizon, at least 700 flying fortresses and liberators. We were 8 fighters against hundreds. It was hopeless. By 1944, American aircraft production reached staggering proportions. That year alone, factories produced 96,270 aircraft, 16,048 four-engine bombers, 35,743 fighters, and 22,591 multi-engine aircraft. This single year's production exceeded Germany's entire wartime output of approximately 94,677 aircraft. The disparity went beyond numbers. Each American bomber carried 13.50 caliber machine guns with thousands of rounds. German fighters increasingly launched with partial ammunition loads. American bombers featured powered turrets, advanced bomb sights, and sophisticated navigation equipment. German fighters often lacked functioning radios. Boeing's Seattle Plant 2 was producing 16 B-17s daily by May 1944. Douglas Aircraft, which employed just 68 people in 1936, had grown to 167,000 workers across 9 facilities. North American Aviation churned out 500 P-51 Mustangs monthly. Lockheed achieved production of 1 P-38 Lightning every 90 minutes, while implementing 2,127 combat-driven modifications. Supporting industries matched this pace. General Motors produced 57,658 aircraft engines under license. Packard built 55,523 Rolls-Royce Merlins. Alcoa's aluminum output increased 600%. Dow Chemical's magnesium production grew from £6 million annually to $333 million. The transformation of America's workforce shattered Nazi preconceptions. Women, comprising less than 1% of aircraft workers in 1941, represented 65% by 1943, 310,000 women among aircraft industry workers. At Douglas Long Beach, 22,308 of 41,602 employees were women. Rose Will Monroe, the original Rosie the Riveter, drove 3,000 rivets per shift at Willow Run with 99.5% accuracy. Women inspectors at Douglas reduced defect rates from 3.2 to 0.3%. Ford redesigned tools for smaller hands, inadvertently improving efficiency. Lighter pneumatic tools reduced fatigue, while better positioned workstations decreased injuries. German intelligence interpreted female employment as desperation. A captured Luftwaffe report dismissed these workers as temporary, predicting quality collapse. Instead, precision improved. Women excelled at detailed work, wiring, instruments, inspection. Their integration represented democratic strength, not weakness. As American production soared, Germany retreated into fantasy. Göring authorized the Jägerstab program in February 1944, dispersing production into 729 underground facilities using slave labor. The Mittelwerk complex employed 60,000 prisoners in horrific conditions, with 20,000 dying. These underground factories produced more defects than aircraft. Slave laborers sabotaged components. Transportation between dispersed facilities caused delays. Quality control collapsed. The entire Mittelwerk complex produced fewer engines monthly than Ford's single Chicago plant. Meanwhile, American innovation accelerated. Boeing developed modular B-29 construction across 4 facilities with completely interchangeable parts. The pressurized B-29, costing $605,000 each, incorporated technology Germany couldn't match in prototypes. By early 1945, America was producing 100 B-29s monthly. June 6, 1944, demonstrated the culmination of American production. The invasion employed 11,590 Allied aircraft against 319 German sorties, a 36-to-1 superiority. This wasn't tactical advantage, but industrial annihilation. Between January and May 1944, preparatory bombing dropped 145,000 tons on German targets, exceeding all German bombing of Britain throughout the war. Transport aircraft delivered 3 airborne divisions in one day using more planes than Germany's entire transport fleet ever possessed. By December 1944, single raids involved 1,200 bombers escorted by 900 fighters. P-51 Mustangs possessed range to reach Poland, performance to match any opponent, and existed in quantities making losses irrelevant. German pilots called them Indians, swarming everywhere simultaneously. As defeat approached, even Nazi leadership acknowledged the production catastrophe. In December 1944, Goebbels wrote in his diary, "Göring's promises about Luftwaffe superiority now seem criminal delusions. We fight the world's greatest industrial power with rhetoric." Rommel told his staff before D-Day, "The Americans can lose 10 tanks for every one we destroy and still overwhelm us. When they land, they will come with such material superiority that no position can hold." Even Hitler admitted to Speer in January 1945, "We should have listened to Böttcher's reports. Their industrial potential was decisive. While we built hundreds, they built tens of thousands." Albert Speer later testified that American bombing reduced German production by 35% for tanks, 31% for aircraft, and 42% for trucks. He stated unequivocally, "The American attacks, which followed a definite system of assault on industrial targets, caused the breakdown of German armaments." Germany's Me-262 jet fighter, operational mid-1944, represented genuine innovation, 100 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. Hitler and Göring believed this wonder weapon could restore air superiority despite numerical inferiority. But Germany produced just 1,430 Me-262s total, with never more than 200 operational simultaneously. Engines required overhaul every 10 hours. Critical materials were unavailable. forcing inferior substitutions. America, meanwhile, had begun jet development in 1942. While the Bell P-59 proved inferior to German jets, Lockheed's P-80 Shooting Star, superior to any German jet, entered production before war's end. American industrial depth allowed simultaneous pursuit of multiple technologies, a luxury Germany couldn't afford. The contrast epitomized the production war's outcome. Germany's technological superiority in jets meant nothing against America's ability to produce thousands of conventional fighters while simultaneously developing next-generation aircraft. Quality without quantity proved worthless in total war. Hermann Göring's arrest on May 8, 1945, by elements of the U.S. 36th Infantry Division marked the beginning of his confrontation with reality. Initially defiant at the interrogation facility in Augsburg, he maintained German technology had been superior, overcome only by numbers. His subsequent transfer to Camp Ashcan in Luxembourg, the dedicated facility for high-ranking Nazi prisoners, brought intensive interrogation. In July 1945, Major Kenneth Heckler conducted extensive interviews documenting Göring's evolving recognition of American industrial superiority. "I knew American industrial potential was great," Göring admitted to Heckler, "but the execution exceeded my worst fears. That single factory at Willow Run produced more aircraft than our entire bomber force at peak. It was incomprehensible." He expressed particular astonishment at American logistics. "Your ability to supply forces across 2 oceans while maintaining domestic production. This was beyond our conception. We couldn't adequately supply forces 500 miles from Germany. You supplied armies 5,000 miles from America." During his trial at Nuremberg, prosecutors presented Göring with overwhelming evidence of American production superiority. Charts showed America producing more aircraft monthly by 1944 than Germany managed annually. Films of Willow Run's assembly lines played while prosecutors listed German cities destroyed by bombers from that single factory. Göring's March 14, 1946 testimony revealed his struggle to comprehend the scale. "I believed the economic and technical potential of the United States to be unusually great, particularly the Air Force. But I never imagined they could increase aircraft production 100-fold in 4 years. Such growth seemed physically impossible." Prison psychologist G.M. Gilbert documented Göring's obsession with production statistics. He repeatedly calculated ratios, comparing single American factories to entire German production. He seemed particularly fixated on Willow Run, calling it "that damned factory that broke our backs." When shown that America had produced 812,615 aircraft engines versus Germany's 241,675, Göring simply stared at the figures in silence. The mathematical reality of defeat was undeniable. The transformation's scope remains staggering even today. From 3,611 military aircraft in 1940, America produced 295,959 by war's end, 97,810 bombers, 99,465 fighters, 98,684 others. This represented not just quantity, but systemic superiority in every aspect of production. 2 million Americans worked in aircraft production at peak, including unprecedented diversity: women, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, disabled workers, teenagers, and elderly citizens. This democratic mobilization achieved what totalitarian command could not: voluntary cooperation that exceeded forced labor's output by every metric. The workforce that entered factories in 1941, knowing nothing about aircraft, emerged in 1945 as the world's most skilled aviation workers. They didn't just build planes, they revolutionized manufacturing itself. Statistical quality control, developed for bomber production, became standard industrial practice worldwide. Automation principles pioneered at Willow Run transformed global manufacturing. The engineers who designed bomber assembly lines would design the Saturn V rocket. The women who riveted B-24s would raise children who walked on the moon. The production miracle didn't end with victory. It launched the American century. The financial dimensions defied economic orthodoxy. Aircraft production consumed $45 billion in 1940s dollars, equivalent to $800 billion today. The B-29 program alone cost more than the Manhattan Project. Yet rather than bankrupting America, war production created unprecedented prosperity. Unemployment, which had plagued the Depression decade, vanished completely. Personal income doubled between 1940 and 1945. War bond sales by workers themselves financed much of the expansion. Willow Run workers alone purchased $45 million in bonds, funding their own factories' operations. Germany, conversely, consumed 40% of its entire industrial capacity for aircraft production by 1944, yet produced less than half American output. Slave labour, increasingly relied upon, proved catastrophically counterproductive. Sabotage was endemic. Quality collapsed. Productivity per German worker actually declined after 1943, while American productivity increased 300%. The production infrastructure built for war became the foundation for post-war prosperity. Aluminum smelters built for bombers produced materials for suburban housing. Chemical plants that made aviation fuel created plastics for consumer goods. Machine tool factories that equipped aircraft plants tooled up American industry for global dominance. Beyond raw production lay organizational excellence. The War Production Board coordinated 184,000 companies seamlessly. IBM punch card machines tracked millions of components across thousands of suppliers. MIT's radiation laboratory, employing 4,000 scientists, developed navigation systems that gave American bombers all-weather capability. When combat revealed B-17 vulnerability to frontal attacks, Boeing added chin turrets within 60 days. When Pacific operations required extended range, consolidated modified B-24s without stopping production. German modifications took months or years. American improvements took weeks. This adaptability proved as decisive as production volume. American aircraft evolved continuously based on global combat experience. Information flowed from Pacific battles to Atlantic production lines within days. German aircraft, produced in isolated underground facilities by slave labor, remained static while American designs improved weekly. The feedback loop between combat and production achieved unprecedented efficiency. Pilots' observations reached engineers immediately. Engineers' solutions reached assembly lines within days. Assembly line workers' suggestions reached designers directly. This democratic flow of information proved superior to German hierarchical command. On October 15, 1946, hours before his scheduled execution, Hermann Göring wrote his final letter. In it, he made his most complete admission of the production war's significance. The Americans won through industrial power, not military prowess. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. The nation we dismissed as capable only of building consumer goods buried the Wehrmacht under aluminum and steel. His last recorded statement to Gilbert was equally revealing. We declared war on an industrial giant while it slept. When it awoke, we were doomed. They didn't just outproduce us, they revolutionized production itself. Every aspect of their system proved superior to ours. Göring committed suicide that night, but his final testimony stands as history's verdict on the production war. The Reichsmarshal who had dismissed American capabilities died knowing a single American factory exceeded his entire Air Force's lifetime production. Military historians consider the American production achievement the decisive factor in Allied victory. Without the overwhelming material superiority it provided, D-Day would have been impossible, the bombing campaign unsustainable, and the Pacific War unwinnable. Richard Overy, the leading historian of the air war, concluded, "The outcome was determined not by fighting spirit or tactical brilliance, but by the weight of material." The Allies won because they buried their enemies under an avalanche of production. The numbers support this assessment absolutely. By 1944, America alone was producing more military aircraft than the rest of the world combined, Axis and Allied. This wasn't incremental superiority, but order of magnitude dominance. Germany faced not defeat, but obliteration. Yet the production miracle's significance transcended military victory. It proved democracy's superiority to dictatorship, freedom's advantage over tyranny, voluntary cooperation's strength over forced obedience. The workers who achieved this transformation weren't slaves or conscripts, but free citizens united in common purpose. Hermann Göring's dismissal of American production capacity stands as history's most catastrophic miscalculation. His contempt for democratic industrial potential cost Germany the war and millions of lives. His failure to recognize American capabilities sealed the Third Reich's fate before the first bomber reached German skies. The transformation from 3,000 to 100,000 aircraft annually demonstrated that free societies, when facing existential threats, could achieve the impossible. American workers didn't just meet Roosevelt's impossible goal, they doubled it. They didn't just match German production, they exceeded it fivefold while simultaneously fighting in the Pacific. Today's leaders would do well to remember Göring's mistake. Dismissing democratic nations as weak because they're peaceful, or underestimating free people's productive capacity because they prefer prosperity to conquest, invites catastrophic miscalculation. America in 1940 appeared unprepared for war. By 1944, it had become an unstoppable industrial colossus. The arsenal of democracy proved that production lines could be as decisive as front lines, that assembly workers could be as crucial as soldiers, that industrial mobilization could determine victory as surely as military strategy. Göring learned this lesson too late, at the cost of his nation's destruction. From his dismissive reaction to Roosevelt's announcement in May 1940 to his execution at Nuremberg in October 1946, Hermann Göring's journey traced the arc of Nazi Germany's destruction. His contempt for American production became the epitaph for the Third Reich, a regime that confused ideology with capability, that mistook tyranny for strength, that believed racial mythology could overcome industrial mathematics. The Reichsmarshal who dismissed American aircraft production died knowing that American factories had produced more planes in 1944 alone than Germany managed throughout the entire war. His mockery of democratic industrial capacity became history's most expensive joke, paid for in the currency of total defeat. America produced 295,959 military aircraft. Germany produced 94,677. But the real victory lay not in numbers but in method, proving that free workers could outproduce slaves, that democratic cooperation could exceed totalitarian command, that a nation of immigrants and diverse citizens could unite to achieve the impossible. The B-24 bombers rolling off Willow Run's assembly line every 63 minutes weren't just aircraft. They were democracy's answer to tyranny. Each rivet driven by a woman who'd been a housewife months earlier, each engine built by a teenager who'd left high school to serve, each wing assembled by workers who'd fled poverty and discrimination, all proved that free peoples, when united in righteous cause, could bury tyranny under an avalanche of production. Hermann Göring laughed at the idea of America producing 50,000 planes annually. America responded by producing twice that many, transforming global history in the process. His laughter echoed through history as the sound of catastrophic miscalculation, the fatal dismissal of democracy's arsenal by a man who understood neither democracy nor production. In the end, both buried him and everything he represented under 300,000 aircraft that turned his contempt into history's most complete defeat.